I had just finished sanitizing the treatment room when Bruce walked in. I wasn't expecting him that afternoon, not really. The receptionist had scheduled a full-body hair removal under a new name I didn't recognize. It wasn't until I stepped into the room and saw him sitting on the edge of the bed, awkward, nervous, with his hands shoved in the pockets of his gym shorts, that my heart hiccuped in my chest. He looked up and smiled. "Hey, Mom." My mouth went dry. You scheduled an appointment?" He chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. "You kept telling me to try it sometime, right? Laser's better than shaving, I figured." I nodded, forcing a professional smile, even as my pulse pounded in my ears. I'd been a licensed laser tech for nearly 20 years. I'd treated hundreds of clients, male and female, young and old. But standing there with the door shut behind me, alone in a warm-lit room with my son lying back on the table, unclothed and expectant, I suddenly felt like a novice again. "I mean," Bruce cleared his throat, his gaze sliding away from mine, "if it's weird, I can rebook. With someone else." "No," I said it too quickly. "No, it's fine. I just wasn't expecting you." He gave me a sheepish smile. "Guess I should have given you a heads up. It wasn't uncommon for family members to receive treatments. But this was different. Bruce wasn't just my son. He was my only child, the baby I'd raised on my own for the first 9 years, back when his father was more ghost than husband. He'd grown into a man so quickly, tall, broad-shouldered, with that same quiet confidence his father had once wielded like a weapon. But Bruce wore it softer, sweeter, more dangerous, in a way I couldn't quite name. I motioned for him to lie back as I prepared the machine. "So you want the full package?" I asked, focusing on the control panel. My fingers trembled faintly as I adjusted the settings. "Legs, chest, back. Everything," he said. "I trust you." I paused for a second. That simple phrase, so ordinary, so common, landed differently. "I trust you." My throat tightened. I began with the arms. His skin flinched slightly with the first zap, but he didn't complain. I worked in silence, my movements efficient, my breath measured. Yet I couldn't help noticing the warmth of his skin, the way his muscles tensed and released with each pass of the device. "You good?" I asked after a few minutes. "Yeah, just feels funny." I nodded. "You'll get used to it." I moved down to his chest, and something shifted in the room. His breathing changed. So did mine. The air felt heavier, charged. I could feel the pulse in my fingertips as I guided the wand in slow, practiced motions. "Still good?" I asked again, not looking at him. He didn't answer right away. When I finally glanced up, he was already watching me. Not in the way a client watches a technician, but in a way that made my breath catch. "Yeah," he said softly. "I'm good." I shouldn't have noticed the way his gaze lingered on my face. I shouldn't have liked it. By the time I finished the upper body, my nerves were unraveling thread by thread. I turned away, pretending to adjust the settings again, needing something, anything, to look at that wasn't him. "Mom," his voice was hesitant. "You okay?" I looked back at him. His eyes were full of something I didn't know how to name. Concern, curiosity, something else, just beneath the surface. I smiled, but it felt brittle. "Of course. Just tired, that's all." He nodded, but I could see the questions forming in his mind. I didn't let him ask them. Instead, I moved on with the treatment, wrapping myself in the safety of professionalism, focusing on angles and pulses, frequencies and timing. When it was finally over, Bruce sat up and stretched. "You were amazing," he said, rubbing his jaw. "It actually wasn't bad." I laughed. "You're lucky I like you. Clients don't usually get this kind of care." He grinned. "Then I'll just have to come back." Something in the way he said it made my stomach twist. I followed him to the front as he rebooked with the receptionist. Another full body in 6 weeks. My heart was still racing when he leaned over to kiss my cheek goodbye. Innocent. Ordinary. But when his lips brushed my skin, I felt something sharp and sweet pull deep inside my chest. His hand lingered at my waist a second too long. He didn't say anything. Neither did I. But the silence that passed between us crackled, and it stayed with me long after the door closed behind him. For days after Bruce's visit, I couldn't shake the feeling. It followed me like the scent of warm skin after a hug, subtle, invisible, impossible to ignore. Every room I walked into felt different. Every mirror I passed seemed to ask a question I couldn't quite answer. I told myself it was nothing. I told myself he was just my son. But I couldn't stop thinking about the way his hand had rested at my waist when he leaned in. How I had stood still, breath held, willing myself not to lean into him. I cleaned the treatment room obsessively the next morning. Not because it needed it, but because I needed to erase whatever had lingered in the air. The table, the sheets, the handles, wiped down, sanitized, sterilized. But my memory was not so easy to disinfect. Bruce texted me 2 days later. "Thanks again for the session, Mom. You really are the best. Think I might actually look forward to coming back." I stared at the message far longer than I should have, fingers hovering over the screen, before finally typing back. "Of course. Always happy to help. Always happy. Always available. Always pretending nothing strange was blooming in the silence between us." The next time we saw each other was in the kitchen. He came over for dinner that Sunday, as he often did, greeting me with that effortless warmth of his, one arm slung around my shoulder, pulling me into a hug that lingered just a second too long. Again. But this time I didn't step away. He was wearing a simple black t-shirt, snug across his chest and shoulders, and jeans that hugged his narrow hips. I busied myself with the lasagna, keeping my back turned to him, but I could feel the weight of his gaze. It wasn't maternal, and it wasn't mine to want. "You look nice," he said casually, leaning against the counter. "Different than usual." I raised a brow. "Is that your way of saying I looked like a mess at the salon?" He laughed, boyish and bright, but there was a flicker of something else in his eyes. "No. You always look beautiful. Just more relaxed now. I shouldn't have let my breath catch." "Wine," I offered instead, changing the subject. "Sure," he said, and as I poured us each a glass, his fingers brushed mine when he took his. The touch was light, but something in it sparked heat that curled low in my belly. We sat on the couch after dinner, talking about everything and nothing. Bruce had always been easy to talk to, but tonight it felt different, intimate in a way that made the space between us feel almost too small. He leaned back, one arm across the back of the couch, fingers just grazing my shoulder. I didn't move. "I've missed this," he said, his voice low. "Dinner," I teased, trying to lighten the air. "No, you." Talking like this. Just being close. There was no mistaking the way his eyes settled on my mouth when I sipped from my glass. No mistaking the quiet weight of his hand on the couch slowly shifting, closer, closer, until his fingers brushed mine. And then they stayed there. "I don't know what's happening," he said softly, "but I feel something, Mom." I froze. The word, Mom, felt too sharp, too deliberate, cutting through the warmth like ice. "You shouldn't say that," I said, barely a whisper. "But it's true," he murmured, and for a heartbeat, we sat there, breathless, unmoving, trembling on the edge of something unspeakable. And then he leaned in. It was slow, so slow I could have stopped him 1,000 times. But I didn't. I couldn't. Our lips met, tentative, feather-light, like a secret past in the dark. I pulled back almost immediately, heart pounding, breath ragged. I tried to be normal the following week. I showed up to work early, filled my schedule, stayed late. I laughed with clients, smiled through casual conversations, and told myself that nothing had changed. But everything had. I couldn't stop thinking about the kiss. It had been brief, barely a breath, but it had landed inside me like an earthquake, a fault line quietly cracking beneath the life I'd so carefully built. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Bruce's face inches from mine. His voice, his lips, the look in his eyes, just before he stepped back. I told myself it was a mistake, but I didn't regret it, and that scared me more than anything. The next time we saw each other, it was accidental. It was a Wednesday. Cloudy. Slow. I was restocking supplies in the back office when I heard the front bell chime. My receptionist called out, "Hey, Fiona, there's someone here for you. He said you'd know what it's about." I stepped into the lobby, already forming a polite excuse on my lips, and then I saw him. Bruce stood near the doorway, hands in his jacket pockets, hair tousled by the wind. He looked calm, nervous, devastating. "Hey," he said softly. "Hey." I stood still, trying to mask the ripple that moved through me. I didn't come for an appointment, he added quickly. I was nearby. Thought maybe we could talk. Just talk. I hesitated. The receptionist glanced between us, picking up on something unsaid. I'm going to take a late lunch, she said with a knowing smile, grabbing her coat. You've got the place to yourself. The door clicked behind her, leaving us alone. I turned to Bruce. Come on. We can talk in the back. He followed me down the hall, his silence thick and deliberate. When I closed the office door, he finally spoke. I haven't been able to stop thinking about it, he said, voice low. That night, Bruce. I'm not here to make things harder, he interrupted, stepping closer. But I can't pretend anymore. You felt it too, didn't you? I sank into my chair, suddenly tired. It doesn't matter if I did. It does to me. He sat across from me, elbows on his knees, eyes locked on mine. I know how it sounds. I know how it looks. But this, what I feel for you, it's not just something that happened out of nowhere. It's been growing. Quietly. For a long time. I shook my head. You don't know what you're saying. I do. His voice was stronger now, edged with certainty. And I think you've known it too. I stood, pacing toward the window, trying to catch my breath. You're my son. I'm not a child. No, you're not. That's the problem, I whispered. He came to stand beside me, not touching, but close enough that I could feel the heat of him. Tell me you don't feel it, he said. I couldn't. The silence between us was thick, alive with everything neither of us dared say out loud. And then, God help me, I turned to him. I didn't speak. I just looked up into those familiar eyes, searching for a way out of a storm we both stepped into. But there was none. Bruce lifted a hand, slow, tentative, and brushed a strand of hair from my cheek. It was nothing. It was everything. I closed my eyes, and I let myself lean into his touch. Later, when he pulled me into a quiet hug, arms wrapped around me, I didn't move. I felt his breath against my neck. I felt the tremor in his fingers. I don't want to lose you, he whispered. You won't. But we can't keep pretending. I know. He pulled back, just enough to see me, and in his eyes I saw something fierce and pure and wrong and beautiful. I love you, he said. I stared at him, the world spinning beneath my feet. Bruce, I've never felt this for anyone, he said. And I know I'm not supposed to. But I do. My heart cracked under the weight of his words. He leaned forward, slowly, pausing just before our lips could touch. I need you to tell me if I should stop, he whispered. I didn't move, and that silence, my silence, was its own answer. In the days that followed, life continued on the surface. I went to work, made dinner, folded laundry, answered calls. Everything looked the same, but I was unraveling quietly beneath the mask. Bruce didn't press me. He didn't text, didn't call. I think he understood that if he did, the thread holding me together would snap. But I missed him. I missed his voice in the house, his crooked grin when he leaned against the doorframe. The way he said Mom, like it meant something sacred. The way it didn't anymore. And still I loved him. Not in the way I once did, when he was 5 and curled against my side after a nightmare. Not even as I did when he left for college, and I cried for days in secret. This love was heavier. It was full of guilt and longing. It was shaped like all the things we couldn't say out loud. The storm broke a week later. I was locking up the salon after hours when I heard someone knock on the glass. It was raining hard. He stood just outside the door, soaked through, looking like something wild and searching had driven him straight through the night. I opened the door without thinking. Bruce, I can't do this anymore, he said, stepping inside. I can't go on pretending this didn't happen. I locked the door behind him and leaned against it, breath shallow. You shouldn't have come here. I know, he said softly, but I had to. His voice was thick with something unspoken, fear or grief, or maybe just the weight of impossible hope. I've tried to stay away. I've tried to push it down, but it won't leave me, Fiona. I'm in love with you. I winced at the sound of my name on his lips. Don't say that. Why? He stepped closer. Because it's wrong. Because it doesn't make sense. I don't care. I'm not ashamed of how I feel. I don't want to hide it anymore. His hands reached out, fingers brushing mine with trembling restraint. And I don't think you do either. Tears stung the back of my eyes. I don't know how we're supposed to live with this. I whispered. I don't know how to carry it. He took my face in his hands. Gently, reverently. We carry it together. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, eyes fixed on the ceiling, replaying the sound of his voice over and over. We carry it together. How had we ended up here? When did my son become the man who looked at me like I was the only soul on earth? The door creaked open just past midnight. My heart skipped. He didn't say anything. Just walked in, slowly, barefoot, his shirt damp from the rain. I sat up in bed, covers bunched around my knees. You shouldn't be here, I said again, but softer this time. I couldn't leave it like that, he murmured, walking to the side of the bed. I needed to see you. Not in the salon. Not on a rainy sidewalk. Here. Like this. He reached for my hand, and I let him take it. I know what this looks like. I know what the world would say. And what would you say, Bruce? He looked at me for a long moment, then knelt beside the bed. I would say that I've never loved anyone the way I love you. And I would say that if this is wrong, then let it be the kind of wrong that teaches us something about the power of what can't be undone. The tears I'd been holding back fell. He didn't kiss me this time. He didn't need to. He just held my hand until the sun began to rise, golden light creeping through the blinds, casting us both in a quiet hush of surrender. My husband never found out. Maybe he never looked close enough. Or maybe he trusted me too much to see the truth forming like a shadow behind my eyes. Bruce began coming over more often. He brought takeout, helped fix things around the house. He laughed with us at dinner, his voice easy and open. But when my husband left the room, Bruce's hand would find mine under the table. A brush, a curl of fingers, a silent promise. And God help me, I let it. There were no more kisses, no more midnight visits. But there were looks, and in those looks, I heard everything he hadn't said, and everything I could never say aloud. The last time I saw Bruce before he left again for school, he pulled me into a hug. It was longer than it should have been. Warmer. The kind of hug that says more than words ever could. He leaned into my ear. You're the love of my life, he whispered. I closed my eyes. And you're the one thing I'll never be able to forget. We stood there a moment longer, wrapped in a truth too wild to name. Then he kissed my cheek and walked out the door. The silence that followed was a wound I would carry quietly for the rest of my life.